Okay, so I'm really pleased to welcome Grant Tunbridge. Welcome, Grant.
Hello, Vic. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good,
Nice
good.
to be speaking to you.
Yeah, see you again.
I've known Grant for many, many years, and we've worked in different bands together, and we've also taught together and he's
Made albums,
made albums, exactly.
which I still play, Vic.
That's good, good. So we go back a long way. Grant's a very, very busy bass player, does a lot of teaching work, and is also one of the important members of the Blues Camp team, one of the brains behind it. So, Grant, first question I normally ask people is why? Why bass? And how did you get started?
Ace of Bass, Vic. See, many moons ago, we grew up with records, Vic. And one of the most magical things about growing up in the generation that I grew up in, that you grew up in, was TV wasn't really on during the day, and my house that I grew up in was always full of music. So my mum had everything from Tom Jones, rock and roll, blues, soul, musicals, everything, and my dad had, Frank Sinatra, crooners, all those things. And having three brothers that also had an interest in music, Sunday mornings in our house was playing records. So the most important thing was I could listen to in the 70s, whether it would be John Holt, Tom Jones. It was so eclectic, and rather than just listening to the words, we would dance to the music as kids.
Right.
So it was the love of music that was the first thing. Whether it was a singing, we would sing, dare I say, chirpy, chirpy, cheep, cheep, or whether it would be Van Morrison, The Who, Hendrix. It was all in our house. Having older brothers, they would buy records, and getting into music, suddenly you go to a record shop and you'd look at the artwork and you'd look at all these interesting people on this 7-inch disc or a 12-inch disc, and you think, who are these people? They were like from another world. They didn't sort of look like your next door neighbour. They were people that were far out there. And then of course when you'd find a TV programme or a radio show, the one thing that always stood out was you'd start to listen to the music. And I remember hearing things when I was growing up, like Green, Hendrix, all the obvious things, like The Who were the most important thing in our house, because things like My Generation stood out. And what was that noise when the drums and the bass, when the drums and the vocals stopped? It was the bass.
Yeah.
And trying to work out what that was that was the sound. That was the bass.
Yeah.
It was.
So that was the thing that really sort of switched you on.
It was My Generation, and then of course you get influenced by listening to things, and then watching things like Top of the Pops. You could look at the band and you could see who was the bass player, who was the guitar player, and all these different shaped guitars. But the bass stood out for me against the other instruments, because these characters would be, playing different shapes and sizes. But then you listen back to the records, which I still have, and you think, that's why I like, whether it's Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick or My Generation, the bass was always there. Or if I listened to reggae, it was the bass that stood out. That's what, from a very young age, hit me. It wasn't so much the vocals or the guitars or the drums, it was the bass.
So, when did you actually start playing then? So obviously you had this sort of love of the bass. So where did you get your first bass?
My first bass was when I was 14, Vic, and I was at school, and a couple of guys that were I used to catch the bus to school were listening to AC/DC. We used to listen to AC/DC on the way to school, the coach, every day.
Yeah.
And they had a girl singer, they had a guitarist and a drummer, but they didn't have a bass player.
Right.
And I lived in the same village as all of these people, which was quite unreal, really. Just put us all in the same pot. And fortunately, the drummer's father had a recording studio, and he had a bass. So my first bass, I used to borrow a Fender Precision, an American Fender Precision, which to this day, as you know, is
the business.
And I've still used that bass recently to record with. It is just the best. So to cut a long story short, I then got my own first bass, which was a Hofner style bass in the style of Paul McCartney. Again, Beatles were in their house, and who's the bass player? McCartney. What's that thing? He was playing it left-handed, of course. He looked even more alien growing up. So that's where bass lines again like come together with spring to mind. And you listen to a Beatles recording, and of course it would take you somewhere. But again, that's another influence, McCartney. So I bought my first bass with my dad. Used to have paper round and all those sort of things that you do, and work Saturdays in shops and things. Work with my dad just to pay for it, and that was it.
So it's interesting because I was talking to Sam this morning, and Sam was sort of saying how much he was influenced by his brother, his older brother, and the fact his older brother listened to music. In fact, it was his older brother that bought the drum kit and then didn't get on with it. And it's interesting because I had a similar thing, that my older brothers, who were much older than me, one of them was in the Merchant Navy and used to bring back old 78s. So I was listening to sort of American stuff, that was sort of in the back of my head by the time, I got, and there was a piano in the house, so I used to play piano by ear. And my other brother was absolutely mad on rock and roll, American rock and roll, and he would go and get Little Richard albums and stuff like that. So I was listening to stuff that just generally you wouldn't have heard so much, even on the radio. So it's interesting that you said about your influence of your brothers and the records they bought and everything, because I'm just wondering now whether that is something that's a bit of a problem for young people, because the music's everywhere. Well, I call it loosely music, because some of it doesn't, as far as tick the boxes for me when it comes to, when you say it's music. It's sound, but it's lacking sometimes.
Well, something. The other interesting thing about the early days, Vic, is that yourself, you would go to a party, you would take your records, and you would write your name on the records, and you would share records, and you would swap records, and you would talk about. I remember my first band was Black Sunrise, and we had so many different records that we would share. So, for example, the drummer would have AC/DC and Ozzy Osbourne back then, and I would take something really random along, like the Stones and the Who, and they go, who are these people? Never heard of them. But at the same time, you then would look at these pictures and then you go, oh, he's called Pete Townsend. I've got a solo album of his. And then you'd be off on another conversation. But you'd listen to his recordings, and then somebody else would have the Cars, or somebody would have David Bowie, or the Sex Pistols. They were relevant to those times in the 70s that made it interesting. So, but it was, people were talking about it all the time.
Yes.
There was a real buzz. You go to school and say, Friday morning, did you see Top of the Pops last night? That guy with the glove, who was he? Oh, that's Alvin Stardust. You knew who these characters were.
Yeah, that's very true. So there was much more of a buzz. And of course the other thing is there were programs like the Old Grey Whistle Test, which was like, where you really got the chance to see bands that wouldn't even been on Top of the Pops or anything, because they were too extreme, like the New York Dolls or the Undertones, or early Undertone stuff, or a band I really enjoyed a lot was Argent. And that's the only place you could see them, was on Top of was on Old Grey Whistle Test. So when did you realise that you were sort of in demand? Because I think that's something with bass players, they very quickly realise that they're needed.
My first gig was 14, when I was 14, at London Tavern in Maidstone.
Oh, right.
And
I remember that well.
That band lasted for a short period, but literally after that, I've not stopped gigging since then.
Yeah.
You know, I was playing with older people because I could at a young age, and people would phone you up. And years ago, you went on a wing and a prayer.
Yeah.
It was a case of, oh, there's this guy I know that plays guitar and he wants a bass player.
Yeah, yeah.
And you would just turn up to his house. There's nothing, and you'd have a jam.
Yeah.
And then, oh, there's somebody that I know wants to play with drums and bass. And then that was the networking of the day. Yeah. It was very innocent. But what happens is that because it's a small local area, you then spread, and by playing parties, I mean, you know, some of the things, you know, I remember being at parties and playing for two or three different bands when I was 16.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, whether you were playing, you know, Sunshine or you'd have 3 times a night in 3 different bands, it didn't matter.
No.
Because everyone was playing.
Yeah.
And there was an excitement about playing and watching the best drummer or the guitar player, bass player, and that's how you network connections. Still to this day, are still relevant because a lot of
I think they are. You see, I think this is one of the things that we don't realise how important the old style networking, getting your name out there, getting your face shown, is, because really, even if you look at social media, ultimately that's what that stuff is.
Exactly.
It's old style connecting up with people, but we went through a bit of a phase where it got a bit sort of weird, and I think we're coming, you know, because I was interviewing Elliott the other day, Elliott Peake, who we both know very well, and Elliott is like ridiculously busy, and I don't even know how old he is now. He's 20s now.
Yeah.
But the thing is that he's done a similar thing, that because he went to music college sort of later, and he was already gigging all over the place. In the first couple of weeks of being at music college, he got poached by different bands who were in a year above him to go. You know, it's like,
that's it.
You know, that's the way it is if you're a good bass player. And
the other thing that works with bass, Vic, is that you can be in 2 or 3 different bands. I mean, in the holidays recently, I did 3 gigs in a day, 3 different bands, because that was just friends, family parties, and locations, and that's how it grows. And you know, you meet 4 people in that band, 4 people in that band, and 5 in the next band. You've suddenly got 15 contacts of musicians that you know you've known for a long time, and that's how it works. And when you're out playing all the time, you do pick up another gig. And I played Saturday, and then suddenly there was another gig coming in for October that nobody knew about, but somebody saw us playing. It's like, are you free this weekend? And that's probably better than social media in that sense.
Yes, it is.
Because they've actually seen the real product.
That's right.
Of the band, and
that's right.
They've met the people, had a handshake and all the rest of it, and they've got the feeling of how it works. And that's the best way.
Because you're incredibly busy.
Yeah, you have to keep.
I know that you clock up far more miles than I do.
But
didn't you?
Yeah, I mean.
And you always have done.
I always have done. I mean, but I've always got up early and I've always gone to bed late, Vic. And I don't know where it comes from. I think it's just being self-employed. I remember having lots of day jobs, and when I was in my teens and I got to about 20, and I thought, hang on, this isn't what I really want to do. I didn't want to work in a builder's merchants on a Saturday morning. I wanted to go to a gig or be at a gig. And I think there's a point where when you're young, if you do it when you're really young, you set your stall up. It's harder once you've had a regular job and you've got used to the money, because those are the pitfalls that you learn very, very early. I remember driving home when I was about 18, and I had a day job, and I knew I had to work Saturday morning, and I had a gig Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, when the gigs were pretty regular, and you could actually say, all right, do I really want to do? You have a chat with yourself. Do I really want to work in this builder's merchants for the next 20 years, or do I want to be a bass player for the next 20 years? And it's a no-brainer. you know, and I remember, you know, one job, the company closed down, and I knew from that day on I was just going to dedicate all my time to music.
Yeah. Now, you brought up a really, really important point, I think, and that is that we were lucky, in a way, that we came out of an era where the education,
Yes.
and I call it a thing, because it is.
It is.
All right, and we're both involved in education. But when we were at school, I don't think our parents considered it as important as parents seem to consider it now. Now, this seems, obviously, a lot of people will be listening to this interview, they'll be like, what are you doing? But what I'm trying to get at is that there is a level of freedom that we had, right, where lots of stuff was like, well, you're sort of learning that, but when are you ever going to use it, sort of thing, right? Now we've got to this point, and I think, well, you know, obviously because of NLP and all the rest of it, there's a lot of pressure being placed on people in the way that the language is used and everything, about how important everything is, and you can't possibly miss any days from school, and heaven forbid that you should ever go away on holiday for a week. But of course, when you work within schools, you realise that some of the lessons are completely terrible, even in schools that are actually supposedly quite good, because somebody's ill, you've got a supply teacher in, they don't know. And the kids will, any chance to take a bit of time out, the kids will do it, right? If they can run somebody ragged, they will, right?
That's normal.
That's normal. The point about it is that it's almost like you've got subjects that are now so sacred, and yet they will never use that information.
No.
Ever.
No.
And I'm sorry, but I'm not the only person to think like this.
No.
There's a lot of people think like this,
Yeah.
but it's like, you know, science. And I mean, I was good at maths, and I've never used any of it. Seriously, I learned to add up again when I left school, because I went and worked in a bank for a while, and it was days, you know, adding up columns of figures and all the rest of it, and don't use it. And the thing is that, you know, I look back at this and think, well, in my day, you could actually, well, not exactly sort of bunk off school and go, well, I did used to do that, but not very often. But the point was, you could take yourself off and play music for a while, and nobody was actually that bothered, you know.
I remember going to a Gary Newman video. I got a friend of a friend said, oh, do you want to go to this video? It's with a pop star, Gary Newman. I thought, yeah, it's really good. I took the day off school. My mum phoned the school up and said, oh, he won't be in today. He's going to a music video.
Oh, not that you were ill.
No. and the headmaster went, why is he going? He said, because he wants to do music when he leaves school.
Yeah.
And my mum was honest, and the headmaster said, well, as long as he catches up with the work, and he said, he said, I don't have a problem with that. And when I went to the school on Monday, I actually had to talk in front of the class about what I did in this video and why I went.
Fantastic.
And I thought, what a brilliant headmaster.
That is fantastic.
And it was actually seen as an event of interest and learning.
Yes.
Because my mum had to take, my older brother took me, and this video is still on YouTube, and the song went in the charts, and I was part of this video, in the crowd.
Yeah.
But I was watching the musicians perform, and this pop star Gary Newman of the day was really something.
Yeah, he was.
And we all got special tickets. We got a recording. I've still got the album.
Right. So what was the track?
It was called. It was Love Needs No Disguise, and it was Gary Newman with Dramatist, which is the spin-off band who we was playing with.
Yeah.
I think I got it signed.
Oh,
Fantastic. But I went to school the next day, and I felt special.
Yeah.
Because
that's the thing.
That
is something that is not there in the education system, as far as I'm concerned, about being special anymore.
It was
you know.
and fair play to the headmistress, actually, tell life, and she grilled me about the day. Where did you go? Shepperton's Film Studios. Have you ever been to Shepperton Film Studios? I said to Mrs. Platt. No. She said, they make all the films there, don't they? I said, yes. I said, it was amazing. I said, you know, you had to drive to the gate and they couldn't let you in. They had to show you pass that you had a ticket to get in to watch the video. It was just magical. You know, 30 odd years later, I'm still talking about it and I remember it as an event. And that's growing up. Yeah. Again, I grew up in Brixton in my earlier years, so I could go to Brixton Market and watch the still band.
Yeah.
I could, you know, I still go to Brixton regularly, and there's still a still band. There's still people playing.
Well, it's funny because Sam was talking about the fact that he lived in Brixton. He used to practice his drums downstairs in the basement, so obviously people heard him because that's how he got his first gig, because they could hear him playing the drums, and the drummer didn't turn up. So that's quite fun, you know. So
that's all of
that. Yeah, it's really good. So the thing is, you know, as I say, I think we had a little bit of a golden age, strangely enough, because of the fact that we had this sort of freedom to do things, and you know, I think this is something that's sadly lacking.
Well, you're right, and it's how I also got into teaching, Vic, through you, because there were opportunities. There were teachers of the day that recognised the freedom that they had for their departments, and there was no letters after. Have you got letters after your name, sermon of this? It was, oh, he plays bass, he plays guitar. They're coming in to do a demo. I remember we did.
Well, that's what we used to do.
And the kids' faces were worth all the money in the world, because it would be a Tuesday in, you know, October, and you turn up your guitar and you play a couple of tracks, and it's like, oh wow, that was electricity in the room.
Exactly.
What does that guitar do, sir?
Yeah.
What does that?
See, we used to do, it's just to sort of recap on this for people that are listening. We used to take a little roadshow round, didn't we? And the idea was, if there was room for lessons, you know, people with enough interest, then we'd pick up a bit of teaching. And yeah, we used to do like a sort of a potted history of music concerning the guitar and the bass, which meant that, you know, we'd just play a bit of rock and roll, blues and reggae and stuff. And the interesting thing with that, and you would think at the time, it would have been the sort of hard rock, heavy rock stuff that went down around, and it was never that, was it? It was rock and roll and reggae. And it's sort of funny because I did a little thing a couple of years back with Sam and Elliott, and it was, you know, early in the morning, lots of junior school kids, and we played a bit of stuff and whatever, you know, spoke about the guitar, and we then played some reggae, and the whole school got up and started dancing at 9:30 in the morning. And you think, and the teachers were just like stunned, because these kids just literally got up en masse and started dancing. And you go, and I remember Sam's face was like, yeah, not bad for 9:30 in the morning. It was amazing.
That's what's missing in a lot of life. Yeah, it's also squashed and pigeonholed. Yeah, that the freedom isn't there, because the minute you try and move out that box, there's a camera in your face and people get self-conscious, or there's, you know, dare I say that even when I do pub gigs now, it's actually comes to the point where some of the guys in the band say, right, obviously the first song is important more than ever now, because they're all going to get the phones out and people are going to record where they are and what they're doing at that precise moment. Yeah. So when you play a first song, it's like how do you know, start? Because that really is like, the cameras go up in the air, it's on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, at wherever, eating lunch, watching Johnny whoever. And you think, right, okay, that's where it's all changed. Yeah. Because, like you say, why don't just get up and dance and put your cameras in your pocket? Yeah. You know, it really is what it's all about in that live experience. It is. You shouldn't be looking at your phone, dancing or watching a band. It's about, that's where the magic's in your brain and your heart and your head, where it all connects. Otherwise you're doing tapping on your phone, you're missing all the golden moments of the gig.
So you got involved with teaching primarily because I think we were working together.
Yeah,
that's basically what was happening.
And the door was open for bass.
Yeah.
Interestingly, because there was a demand there.
Yeah.
And same for the guitar, because guitarists didn't play with bass players.
No.
You know, suddenly you're playing a 12 bar with a bass and a guitar, it comes alive, and then you go, okay, guitarist, do a solo, and it's like they've got this underpinning rhythm. So the bass enabled the guitarist, or to find their pocket, and that suddenly made their rhythm playing interesting, and it suddenly made their lead playing interesting because it wasn't static.
No.
It was going out of those, comfortable areas that they didn't practice on their own.
You made a lot of mentions earlier about, well, you mentioned a number of songs that had very distinctive bass parts in it, and I know, obviously, from our conversations before, how important melodies are
Absolutely.
to you, and you spend a lot of time getting kids to work tunes out, don't you?
Oh,
and I do this at the beginning of teaching as well. That's the first thing I teach people is to play a melody. Now, would you say that is one of the cornerstones of what you do?
Yeah.
All the way through.
Yeah, because the whole point of bass is to break the blocks. Yeah, once you know where A, B, C, D, F, and G, and all the sharps and flats are on the bass, that's your roadmap. That's all well and good. But it's hearing it, because sometimes the best thing to do is, right, okay, here's your bass, and somebody's got a brand new bass, and they've got someone say, oh, right, what's your favourite TV programme? They might say Match of the Day. You go, go on then, let's play it. What is the answer? I don't know how to do it. Yes, you do. You listen to the theme tune every time you watch the programme. So let's start. How do you go about it? And what's really interesting is people do know it on their instrument, because they've heard the tune so many times.
Exactly.
And I'll do some really daft things. I'll start on the lowest note on the bass and say, right, okay, there's your first note. They go, it doesn't go like that. And I go, well, you said you didn't know how it goes.
Yeah.
And then I'll do the highest note on the neck. And I go, right, start there. And they go, it doesn't start there. So they do know the answers. They do know. But they've got to play the thing.
Yeah.
They've got to use their ear, and then the magic starts when they get the first few notes to, whether it's Match of the Day or whatever tune they're listening to. And it's brilliant, because that's where 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes has gone into your practice. And that practice alone is still something I still do.
Yeah.
Because I might hear a saxophone line or a Stevie Wonder vocal line or something, and then play it on the bass.
See, that's another thing that I think, obviously when we started off, the music books that were available were pointless and rubbish.
Yeah.
Often in the wrong key and, totally inadequate.
Yeah.
I mean, the Beatles Complete was my biggest gripe, because it was such rubbish. It was so wrong, and yet that was the first. God, that's how the classic one was things like Day Tripper in the key of C in the book, when of course
D or
in E or and you just sort of think that's totally ridiculous,
Well,
but that was the quality of what music was available. It was just rubbish, so you had to work things out by ear. And of course, that is what created the type of players that we had.
Well, Jack Bruce.
Yeah.
Take Jack Bruce. They grew up, or the classic George Harrison story is they didn't know what the third chord was in the rock and roll key of E, but they knew a guy on the other side of Liverpool that did. So they got on the bus and asked him, knocked on his door, and said, "What's that missing chord?" He said, "Oh, it's a B7." How'd you play that, mister? Because there were no books. You had to be curious. You had to find out for yourself. The softness of today is, I'll Google it, or I'll go on Ultimate Guitar, and then yes, people can play probably a lot faster these days and pick things up, but they're missing this whole fundamental fun of growing up. On a Sunday, dare I say, as you know yourself, Vic, was brilliant, because there was nothing on TV, and if you didn't do sports, you had all day at home, and people actually got bored. Well, I didn't get bored, you didn't get bored, because we played guitar or bass.
Exactly.
And I would be forever saying, my mum would say, your fingers would fall off. I'd go, good. And she knew I was in my bedroom playing with guitar or tinkering or playing records,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
But still to this day, at home, I'll go away for an hour or so, pick up a few recordings, not work the whole thing out or not use Ultimate Guitar, and I'll work on a bass line.
Yeah.
Then I'll detune my bass and play it in A flat or E flat. I'll detune it again, so it makes it a little bit more interesting to play for your own ideas, creative in your own melodies, and certainly sometimes with bass solos, it's a difficult instrument to solo with. It doesn't really stand out, so you've got to make it think differently from the actual song that you're playing sometimes. So, you listen to any great player, those Stanley Clarke bass lines or any those Jaco Pastorius lines, they stand out for that reason. They listen to the sax. They listen to the lines that they couldn't play.
Exactly.
But nowadays we've sort of grown up in this whole college thing with for guitar. It wasn't there when it was just starting. I remember sitting with you and saying, "Well, there's this London College company about grades," and if I was going to the education thing, best really gen up on all my stuff, and then you think, well, I know that. Without.
Of course you do. Absolutely.
I knew what a scale sounded like, or when I read the books, I went, oh right, that's what I do.
Exactly. You see, some of the best players that I've had the privilege to sort of teach, they always had a problem with things like that, scales and chords and that kind of view. Not because they couldn't do them, it's just they were boring. And there's just part of the toolkit. If you can just get people to think, well, it's just part of the toolkit. But that's not music. Music's what you do when you put all these sounds together. Right? But I was listening to Robin Ford doing this talk about, he was doing one of these sort of masterclass things, and somebody asked him about scales. He said, well, I don't practice them. And everybody was like, And he went, well, the trouble is, you see, if you spend a lot of time playing scales, what are you going to do when you improvise? Play scales. And the point he's getting at is, where's the music?
Yes.
Yeah. And you see, and I really believe that in the past people didn't think in scales and stuff. It would be a language, so it would be, this is what B.B. King played. This is what Charlie Christian played. This is a Charlie Parker lick. Charlie says this, Louis says that, Louis Armstrong says that, and it was done like that.
And
so
people had their own.
It's a vocabulary.
Yes.
Right.
And their tone and their sound came from that.
Yeah.
Because you listen to B.B. King on a recording, oh, it's B.B. You listen to Freddie, you go, oh, it's Freddie. Oh, it's Albert Collins. Oh, it's Albert King.
Yeah.
They all had their own voice.
They had their sound, exactly.
And they didn't have any idea what they were playing.
No.
B.B. couldn't play chords, as you know, but he just played what he felt sounded good.
Yeah.
And if he hit a note that was a little bit random, he would make it even more random, or would work it in with the song, and that's how he got his guitar style. And the difficulty is, like you say, sometimes when people practice just scales, they all sound like scales, don't
They do.
They
Well, I mean, that is the problem, isn't it? It can just end up being like that, because it's not, the scales are just part of the map.
Yeah.
And and we've spoken about this before, about the concept of maps and NLP and all the rest of it, and that maps, the bigger the map you got, okay, the more you understand the topography of the music. But the map isn't just about the scales, it's also about, dynamics and intonation and phrasing and stuff. And unfortunately, scales don't do that for you. Listening does, okay? And listening in bizarre ways to music, like you were talking about changing your tuning and playing like that and seeing what that brings you and what I mean. That type of exploratory playing, you may not do that in a gig, but it opens doorways in your head to new possibilities. And again, this is the type of thing that obviously we do quite a bit with Blues Camp, that where we put people on the back foot by taking them out of their comfort zone.
I think that's one of the keys of why Blues Camp actually works, because we're all collectively have our different experiences.
Yeah.
And when somebody comes along and they've got to grade 3 or whatever they got, that's all out the window. Right, you're playing this song today, and then we'll come along and go, right, okay, now try this, or this, and it's like the possibilities of changing how you play and how you think of how you play. So it shouldn't be the same note in the same place every night, otherwise it gets very boring.
Exactly, absolutely. So, your gigs, obviously you've said before you've done a lot of stuff with networking, really, just by knowing people. So you would say that that's where most of your work comes from?
But I'm forever pushing myself a bit. So at the moment I'm playing for a jazz band, a bit of reggae, I'm in a couple of blues bands, for a couple of singer-songwriters playing for those, and I do my own thing as well, which I think is really important, that whether you're playing a 3-chord track on your own style or whatever, it keeps it good for yourself, and it's about stoking the fire.
Yeah.
It's about not being comfortable with your own playing. I still, to this day, and I did it last week, I go for a mooch and I get lost in London. I go to different parts of London, not just to see the shops or whatever, but to listen out for different parts of music. So like last week, for example, I went to the West End, I went to Brixton to see Melancholy and all those people. So I would have heard a steel band, and I went to West End and I would have seen a couple of buskers down the tube stations. So I would then go over to Brick Lane and I'd hear all different styles and stands there. And I go to markets still, because certainly in London now you'll have different European radio stations on or whatever, or music styles, because you think, what was that? What was grunge and garage and all hip hop and all these things come out of different ways of being.
It's interesting, because
that is the thing. And then it's also like when I go to a restaurant, I don't go to a restaurant unless I know it's going to be something different. So I do it myself. So I was in Belgium a few weeks ago, in France, playing different gigs. In France, music was standard European thing. Belgium, God, I didn't expect sort of half these sort of songs and these different old style music, and I'm thinking it was gorgeous. It was, and you think that's where music is still relevant to our lives, because the danger is we'll get sort of the top 10 singers on Spotify or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, that is one of the problems, isn't it?
And everyone doesn't want to accept everything else because it's not on their playlist. And it goes back to record shops again. You could walk for a jazz section, a blues section, rock and roll, hip hop, whatever, and it made you curious. Now there's a bit too much.
Yes. Unless
you're disciplined to say, right, I'm going to listen to some Kazakhstan music tonight on at 10 o'clock on the radio.
Well, that's interesting, because that I'm interested in lots of sort of shamanic type stuff. Whether it's sort of Mongolian overtone singing or whatever, and because the point is that music traditionally was nothing to do with by popular demand.
Yeah.
It was actually part of the fabric of the society that you were in that it was ceremonial, or it was something that had deep significance to the people, and music was sacred, for want of a better word, meaning not sacred in the Christian sense of the word, but sacred from a point of view that it was the thing that spoke to trees or something like that. I mean, it literally was that. So we look at that now and think, praise and stuff. But music was used for healing and all other things. And that is something which, when you're involved as a musician, because of the way that things happen in music, where the drummer and the bass player happen to play the same sort of riff, unrehearsed, and you think, what was that? How did that happen? And it happens all the time. And obviously we play in bands where we don't even know what set we're going to be playing.
Exactly.
You know, and the songs can go anywhere, and do.
I played for a Cajun band the other day. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know what the keys were, the songs, and they went 1, 2, 3, 4. And I went, oh, hold on to your hat. But it was probably the best fun I've had in ages, because I wasn't playing the bass. The bass was playing me. Because all my years of experience was going. I didn't know what I could play the same song again because it wasn't. I just didn't know the tunes. But you get the gist, and you get the flavours, and put it all in the pot. And everyone came away smiling and went, "Wow, that was brilliant." And I went, I didn't know how. I've never played, such a varied set. 3 chords, some of them 1. But so exciting. And a Zydeco player would be playing with a drum, and there was violin, and it's like, oh god, and just that was it. You could move around. That's what you want. And it's not being static. And that the minute you get static, you can feel it when you're playing. So you realise you have to take yourself out of that box and move around to another. So
What would you say is one of the things that a prospective musician, you know what I mean, somebody who's discovered that that's what they're going to do, and they want to get out and play, and maybe want to make a living out of it.
Right, soak yourself in it. Soak yourself in every way. If you want to become a bass player, be a bass player. If you want to be a drummer, be a drummer. You want to be a guitarist, be a guitarist. So that means getting up early. Don't do the stereotypical getting up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon musician. That will last you a few years until you realise that everyone's passed you by. And I've seen that quite a few times. Talented musicians get up early. Be organised in yourself. Even if you've got nothing in the diary that day, be interested about how you're going to find music for you. So whether it's practicing, be diligent and go to music shops. Get yourself lost into jam nights. Some nights I've been out 4 or 5 nights on the trot and I want to just go home, but I've gone to a jam night just to see someone play. Even if it's for 15, 20 minutes, I've gone to a jam night and I've made a connection. Or I've seen a good bass player, a boy or girl that's really got the bit between two. Then I've had this conversation with them, and they had a conversation with me. And your networking is about going out. So whether it's going to the bass weekend, go to the bass weekend. If it's going to see a band that might not be your cup of tea, you're still going to learn something about it. I mean, like you, Vic, I've probably been to every style of music going, and not everything's going to hit my button, but at least I go. That's how you get the sound for. Sometimes I've been to reggae concerts where I felt physically sick because the bass is just so. And I've been to metal gigs where the bass has just been so. But at least I know how they do it because they've got these huge 8x10 stacks. Or be interested in the technical things like the speakers, the guitars. I still, I tried a 5-string out the other day, which is beautiful. I thought, I've got a 5-string, but it still tickled my bones to say, this one's got something. When you pick up a guitar, whether it's a cheap guitar or an expensive one, still buy cheap basses every once in a while and play them. I found a bass a few months ago for 50 quid at school, and I picked it up and I thought, I like that. I use it to practice at home with because the action's higher. It's not like my Lapland, which is nice and set up, but it makes me play. And you really have to go out and do all the gigs, play for free to a point.
Now that's a good one.
Because
I like that because that is one of those bones of contention, isn't it? About this play for free thing. And sometimes, it's like any business, you've got to do something because this is an area. Well, I've not spoken to you much about this, but this idea of the whole concept of how we trade. Which is something that, we're not going to be able to sort of go into much depth here, but I've been reading books by people like Charles Eisenstein, which is about where effectively the economy has been messed up by the way that money functions, because money basically creates scarcity.
Yeah.
And he explains it brilliantly. Effectively, it's because of interest, right?
Yeah.
The point about that is sometimes you can trade
Absolutely.
that this is playing for free. Now, I'm not saying that you should go and take the gig because you've got the, there's always an A&R man in the audience and all this nonsense that you get, right?
Yeah,
Which is a little bit like the old musical song about my mum knows my a friend who knows Lloyd George or whatever it was.
Right.
You remember? But it's a little bit like that. That everybody knows somebody who's important, Those sort of gigs, no. You don't do those. No. But the ones that you can choose, that you say, I want to go and do this one because I've never played in a chateau in France.
Absolutely.
And that type of thing, which you've got memories that suddenly are like, wow, I want to do this one. Yeah, because why not?
Well, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've done gigs in the most bizarre places, probably so many funerals, to weddings, to christenings, to you name it. St James's Palace, to the Dog and Duck in the middle of Timbuktu.
Yeah, exactly.
But they've all had relevance. I turned up to a gig one night and it was just the landlord and the landlady, but the band played on, to coin a phrase, and we still talk about this night because it was brilliant. We had such a laugh, and the band got more out of it because the next day they were recording in the studio, and it made them tighter, and it just made everything so that you're not playing for nothing.
No,
you're not.
It's a mind game, isn't it?
Now, I've been on tours with Nicky, and we've had 2 days off.
Yeah.
Now, what do? Do you sit and rehearse in somebody's house, or do you play a gig?
Yeah.
We played a gig
for
free, and guess what? He sold 50 CDs.
Yeah.
He got free food and he got free beer, and that free gig turned out to be another £80, which put diesel or whatever it was in the van, and then 200 people would see you play.
Yeah.
And they came to the next gigs, and the next gigs, and then you got a fan base.
Yeah.
So you're not playing for nothing. You're playing for exposure to keep your profile.
Yes.
And if you're out there all the time doing gigs, you get a gig. A friend of mine stopped playing gigs about 10 years ago, and he came up with this line. He said, "Once you're off the scene, you're off the scene." And I thought, well, how true? And he started again recently playing for this band. And I said, "How you doing, John?" He said, "Wish I'd never stopped playing." I said, "What an idiot." He said, "Probably wasted 10 good years of not only earning money playing bass or whatever." He said, "but catching up with other people and friends." And he said, we are having so much fun. Yeah.
Great. Well, look, let's wrap it up there. That's really good, Grant. It's always good to talk to you, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff there for prospective players. Obviously, I'll be sort of interviewing other people, and obviously I'll be tapping you for contacts that you, as you have many contacts in your.
Here's a good tip in the day we live in. I've probably got about 800 contacts in my phone. Save your numbers to your computer or write them down because you don't want to lose your contacts.
Exactly. And on that note, okay. Well, thanks very much, and we'll speak again soon.
That's okay.